Picture this. You arrive at the airport 2 hours early, you feel ready, you feel calm, and then you see it. A line that barely moves. People frustrated, bags opened, shoes off, and somehow the clock keeps running faster than the line itself. Most travelers think TSA delays are just bad luck. Wrong day, wrong hour, wrong airport. But that is not the real story. In 2026, there are 5 specific habits that separate the travelers who glide through security in minutes from the ones stuck standing there watching their boarding time disappear. These are not tricks. They are the exact habits frequent flyers already use every single time they fly. And once you understand them, you will never look at an airport line the same way again. Stay until the end, because rule number 1 is the one almost nobody expects, and it is the one costing people the most time without them even realizing it. Before we go further, if you want more real travel guidance made for people who fly smart and stay stress-free, hit follow on Fly Smart after 70, because the very next rule alone can save you 30 minutes at your next trip. And it takes almost no effort to apply. Rule number 5. Enroll in TSA PreCheck before your next trip. This sounds obvious, almost too simple to matter, and that is exactly why so many travelers ignore it completely. They assume the regular line is fine. They assume 5 or 10 extra minutes will not matter in the end, and then one bad travel day proves them wrong in front of everyone watching the boarding clock. TSA PreCheck is not a luxury anymore. It is the dividing line between a smooth morning and a stressful sprint down the terminal. With PreCheck, you keep your shoes on, you keep your belt on, you keep your laptop inside your bag, you keep your light jacket on, and the small 3-1-1 liquid rule barely slows you down the same way it slows everyone else. Without it, every single one of those steps becomes its own delay, multiplied by every person in front of you doing the exact same slow routine. One shoe at a time, one laptop at a time, one bin at a time. Here is what most people do not realize. The application process is not instant. It requires scheduling an appointment, passing a background check, and sometimes waiting several weeks before approval arrives. So travelers who wait until the week before their flight often miss the window completely and end up flying without it anyway. And here is the twist that surprises people the most. Once you finally have PreCheck, it is not permanent. It expires after 5 years, and busy travelers forget to renew it until they are standing in the slow line again, wondering why their status quietly disappeared without warning. So if you fly even twice a year, this single step changes your entire airport experience. It turns a stressful hour into a 5-minute walk through the checkpoint. And it works at almost every major airport across the country, not just the big international hubs. The travelers who move fastest through security are not lucky. They are not special. They simply did this one thing months before their trip, quietly, while everyone else waited until it was already too late to matter. And here is something else worth remembering. PreCheck also reduces the chance of random secondary screening, the kind that pulls you aside for extra questions, extra bag checks, and extra waiting, simply because your status already tells the system you have been vetted in advance. Think about the last time you flew. Think about how many minutes you spent standing in one spot, waiting for the person ahead of you to remove a belt, unpack a laptop, or search for their ID. And now imagine skipping that entire wait completely because your status already cleared most of it before you even reached the front of the line. Frequent flyers rarely talk about this because it feels almost too simple to mention, but it is one habit that quietly saves hours over the course of a single year, and it costs far less than a single checked bag fee to set up once and use for the next 5 years straight. There is also a quieter benefit almost nobody mentions. Once you carry that status, your entire mindset around flying changes. You stop dreading the checkpoint. You stop building extra buffer time into every trip just in case. And you start trusting that the process will move quickly because you already did the one thing that guarantees it. That kind of calm, walking into an airport without the usual knot in your stomach, is worth more to most travelers than the minutes it actually saves, because stress at the airport rarely stays contained to the security line. It follows you all the way to the gate, and sometimes all the way onto the plane itself. Rule number 4. Check airport security wait times before leaving home. Most travelers plan their arrival time based on habit alone: 2 hours for domestic, 3 hours for international, and they never actually check what is happening at their specific airport on their specific day of travel. That is the mistake, and it is a mistake almost everyone makes without thinking twice about it. Airport wait times are not fixed numbers. They shift by the hour, by the day of the week, and by the season, and in 2026, several major airports now publish live wait time data through their own apps and through official TSA tools directly on your phone. A Tuesday morning flight might clear security in 10 minutes, while a Sunday evening flight at the exact same airport can stretch past 45 minutes because everyone is returning from the same weekend trip at once. Here is where it gets tricky. Holidays are not the only spike you need to worry about. Some of the worst delays happen on completely ordinary weekdays, during shift changes, during staff shortages, or when a large international flight lands right before your own checkpoint opens for the morning. Travelers who check the live wait time before leaving home can adjust in real time. They can decide to leave 15 minutes earlier just in case, or they can relax knowing the line is unusually short that particular day. Travelers who skip this step are gambling with their own schedule, hoping today happens to be a normal day, and when it is not, they become the ones running through the terminal with their shoes half untied and their boarding pass crumpled in their hand. This single habit, checking before you leave the house, takes less than 1 minute out of your morning, and it removes almost all of the guesswork that causes people to either arrive dangerously late or waste hours sitting at an empty gate for nothing at all. And here is one more detail worth remembering. Some airports show different wait times for different terminals within the same building. So checking the general number is not always enough. You want the number for your specific terminal, your specific checkpoint, because that is the one that actually affects you. Think about a family heading to a holiday visit. Checking the app the night before shows a spike expected around their exact departure hour. So they simply shift their arrival earlier by 20 minutes and walk straight through without stress, while another family flying the same route 2 hours later never checked at all and ends up standing in a line stretching past the terminal doors. That one small habit, glancing at your phone for 30 seconds before you grab your keys, is the difference between arriving calm and arriving already exhausted, before your flight has even started. And it is not only about avoiding long lines, checking ahead also protects you from the opposite mistake, arriving far too early and sitting at an empty gate for 2 extra hours because you assumed the worst case every single time out of habit. Knowing the real number, instead of guessing, means your entire morning is planned around actual conditions rather than fear, and that alone removes a surprising amount of stress from a day that already feels rushed enough without adding unnecessary guesswork on top of it. Rule number 3. Keep your liquid bag in the front pocket of your carry-on. This feels like a small detail, almost too minor to matter, but it is one of the biggest hidden causes of slowdown at checkpoints across the country. Picture the traveler standing in front of you, bag zipped tight, liquids buried somewhere in the middle, laptop stacked directly on top, and when the officer asks for the clear bag, that traveler has to unzip everything, dig through folded clothes, and hold up the entire line behind them while everyone watches. Now picture the opposite, a traveler who keeps that clear liquid bag in the very front pocket, easy to reach, easy to pull out in 3 seconds, easy to place directly into the bin without unpacking anything else at all. That single habit alone can cut your personal screening time in half, and it also reduces the chance that an officer needs to manually search your bag because something looked disorganized on the scanner image behind the belt. Here's the part most people miss completely. Scanners read shapes and density, and a bag with liquids scattered between clothes and electronics creates a cluttered image that is harder to clear quickly, which means more manual checks, more follow-up questions, and more time standing there answering them one by one. When your liquids sit together, visible, accessible, and separated from your electronics, the scanner reads it clean on the first pass, and that is often the exact difference between walking straight through and getting pulled aside for a second look at your bag. It costs nothing to organize your carry-on this way. It takes 30 seconds before you leave home, and it is the exact habit that separates travelers who breeze through security from the ones who quietly become the reason the whole line slows down behind them. And there is one more small trick worth mentioning. Keep your phone charger and small cables in that same front section because tangled cords sitting near your liquids often trigger the same kind of cluttered scan that liquids alone would cause on their own. Think about how many times you have watched someone at the belt turn their entire suitcase upside down looking for one small bottle buried at the bottom, holding up the line while their flight boarding time keeps ticking closer. And now think about how differently that moment looks when the bag is already sitting right on top, ready in 3 seconds flat. Small habits like this rarely feel important until the one day they save you from missing your gate entirely. And by then, most travelers wish they had built the habit months earlier instead of learning it the hard way at the checkpoint. Consider packing the night before your next trip. Take 30 extra seconds to set that liquid bag aside in its own dedicated pocket, place your phone charger beside it, and zip that section closed separately from the rest of your belongings. Because that one small routine at home is what quietly prevents the frustrating scramble you have probably experienced at least once standing right at the front of a busy scanner line. Rule number 2, choose the fastest TSA checkpoint entrance, not the closest one. Most travelers walk straight to whichever security entrance is nearest to where they parked or where they entered the terminal, assuming every checkpoint works exactly the same way. In 2026, that assumption costs people real time because larger airports now operate multiple checkpoints with very different wait patterns depending on which terminal feeds into them, which airlines are boarding during that hour, and how many lanes are actually staffed at that particular entrance. A checkpoint near a major international gate area can be completely packed at certain hours, while a checkpoint 2 or 3 minutes further away, feeding a smaller set of gates, can be almost empty at the exact same moment in time. Here is the part that surprises even frequent flyers themselves. Some airports place their pre-check lanes or their faster general lanes at entrances that are not the closest to the main doors, almost hidden in plain sight, and travelers who never explore beyond the first checkpoint they notice never discover this at all. The habit that actually works is simple. Glance at airport maps or apps before you arrive, and if you have flown through that specific airport before, remember which checkpoint moved fastest last time. Because most airports keep that same general pattern across most ordinary weeks. Choosing the right entrance is not about walking further for no reason at all. It is about understanding that airports are not built with one single flow, and travelers who treat every checkpoint as identical are often the ones stuck behind a wave of passengers from 3 connecting flights that all landed at once. And one more thing worth remembering, terminal signage often points you toward the nearest checkpoint automatically, not the fastest one, so following the signs blindly is not always the smartest choice you can make that morning. Picture 2 travelers landing at the same airport, walking off the same train from the parking garage. One turns left toward the checkpoint the signs point to and waits behind a wall of passengers from a delayed flight, while the other keeps walking 2 extra minutes to a smaller checkpoint most people never notice, and clears security before the first traveler even reaches the front of their line. That small choice, walking a little further, instead of stopping at the first sign you see, can be the entire difference between relaxing at your gate with a coffee and sprinting down the terminal at the very last boarding call. Frequent flyers quietly build a mental map of every airport they visit often. They remember which checkpoint opens earlier in the morning, which one gets flooded right after a large arrival, and which one almost nobody uses simply because it sits a little further from where the shuttle drops passengers off, and that quiet knowledge is worth far more than arriving early. If you still walk straight into the busiest line in the building without knowing any better. Rule number 1, use facial recognition lanes instead of manual ID checks. And this is the rule that surprises almost everyone, because many travelers still actively avoid it without realizing what it actually costs them in time. Facial recognition lanes are now standard at a growing number of major airports, and the process itself is almost instant. You step up, the camera matches your face to your passport or your identification, and within seconds you are cleared to move forward. No officer flipping through your documents page by page, no manual comparison, no waiting for a second person to confirm anything at all. Yet a large number of travelers still choose to opt out of this system entirely, sometimes out of habit, sometimes out of genuine privacy concerns, sometimes simply because they do not fully understand what the alternative actually looks like once they choose it. Here is the truth. Nobody explains clearly enough. Opting out is completely allowed. That right never disappears. But choosing manual verification instead of the automated lane means stepping into a noticeably slower process every single time, one where an officer has to manually check your face against your documents, ask follow-up questions, and process you at human speed instead of camera speed. In practice, that difference can mean standing for several extra minutes in a system that was specifically built to move fast, while the traveler right next to you clears the exact same checkpoint in seconds simply because they used the lane already designed for that kind of speed. This is not about giving up your choice. You always keep that right no matter what. But understanding the actual time cost changes how most people decide once they see it clearly, because once travelers experience how much faster the automated lane moves, most of them choose it every time after that first experience without hesitation. And here's the twist most people never expect. The ones who still avoid it are usually the same travelers complaining loudly about long lines without ever realizing they created part of that exact delay themselves, simply by choosing the slower path without understanding what it truly cost them. Consider two passengers standing near the same checkpoint. One steps into the automated lane, glances at the camera, and walks through before their coffee even cools down, while the other stands nearby answering questions, showing documents twice, and watching several other travelers move past them in the time it takes to finish one simple verification. Neither traveler did anything wrong. Both had every right to choose their own path, but only one of them understood ahead of time exactly what that choice would cost in minutes, and that single piece of knowledge is often the real difference between a relaxed morning and a rushed one. This does not mean everyone should use facial recognition without question. Plenty of travelers have valid personal reasons to choose the manual lane every time, and that choice will always be fully theirs to make, without judgment. What matters most is walking up to that checkpoint already knowing which path you are choosing and why, instead of standing there confused while the automated lane empties out beside you, and your own line barely inches forward one person at a time. 5 rules, all simple, none of them secret, yet most travelers never combine all 5 at once before they fly. Enroll in PreCheck before you actually need it. Check the real wait times before you leave your house. Keep your liquids exactly where you can reach them in seconds. Pick the checkpoint that actually moves instead of the one that is closest, and understand what opting out of facial recognition really costs you in time once you choose it. None of these rules punish you. They simply reward preparation, and the travelers who move through security in just a few minutes are not lucky. They are not special. They are simply the ones who already knew this before they even packed their bag the night before. The travelers who get stuck standing in that slow line are not careless people. They are simply unprepared people, and now, after hearing all 5 of these rules together, you are not one of them anymore. Think back to the very first picture we started with, the line that would not move, the clock ticking faster than the crowd. And now imagine walking into that same airport, already holding PreCheck status, already knowing the wait time before you left your house, already carrying a bag, organized exactly the way it needs to be, already choosing the checkpoint that actually moves, and already understanding what the automated lane offers before you even reach the front of it. That version of you does not feel anxious walking into an airport. That version of you feels calm, prepared, and completely in control of a process that used to feel completely out of your hands. If this changed the way you will pack and plan your very next trip, subscribe to Fly Smart After 70 right now, because next time we are breaking down exactly what airport staff notice first. The moment you step up to that checkpoint, and you will want to see it before your next flight, not after you have already learned it the hard way. Turn on notifications too, because the next guide drops soon, and travelers who follow along tend to be the ones who never get caught off guard at the checkpoint again.